Hey everyone, welcome to Long Game Yoga. This is my beginner series for athletes. This is episode 3. We're going to look at some stuff that starts on the mat and helps us make that transition from the mat stuff to half standing to standing. So let's get started on our back for this one. The first pose we're going to look at is something that's based on something that we looked at in the very first episode. And if you remember hand to big toe, we were lying back. We brought a knee in, lifted the leg up with a strap on it. So what I want to do is do the same thing here. So let's just start off with a quick review. So let's start just on our back on the mat. Lying back, everything is relaxed. This is our Shavasana pose. So the feet are draped out to the side. My hands are by my sides. The palms are up at the ceiling. And we're just relaxing and breathing. And from here, we're going to come into that Tadasana shape, that reclined mountain pose. And I realize I am using some of the Sanskrit names here. It's the way I do it in my studio classes. Again, you don't need to know all those names at all. You might become familiar with them through repetition. But, I do think it's a way of honoring the lineage of this practice. The other thing about it is those names are also kind of specific. Whereas I've been to different studios that have called the same pose different names, different English names, and that can make it a little bit confusing. So if you don't want, you can just take what sticks. I guess that would be my advice. Take what sticks. So legs are straight. We're pointing the toes straight up. We've got that nice activation from the heels up through the crown of the head. Pushing the heels down, pushing the thighs down, lifting the kneecaps up toward the hips. And then I'm going to pull this left leg into the chest. So again, this is really just to warm up the hip, get things ready. You'll often find this move at the beginning of a class, although sometimes you'll see it at the end of a class too. Because this is another way to get into not just the hamstrings, but in the external hip rotators. So go ahead and take a strap. We're going to bring it around the ball of that left foot in this case. And then we're going to come into that hand to big toe pose. So this is the same thing we looked at in episode 1. Lifted leg is straight. The leg that's still on the floor is nice and straight too. So I'm pressing down my right heel into the mat. And with the lifted leg, I'm keeping it straight. So I'm contracting these quad muscles at the front of the upper leg, and that helps to stretch the ones at the back. And that's what this pose is really great for. This is a really nice hamstring stretch. We'll do another one in this episode too that's pretty nice. But this is a nice way to just get into it. Again, doesn't matter how far back you're pulling that foot, as long as the leg is straight and you can feel that stretch. So this is often called hand to big toe 1. Hand to big toe 2 is what we're looking at right now. And so for that, what we're going to do is we're going to take both straps into the left hand. And then I'm going to use my right hand. I'm going to reach it out to the side or bring it to the hip. So you're weighing down the body. And then what we're going to do is we're going to let that lifted leg just drop out to the side. So this is where you're getting that external rotation of the femur and the hip socket. You're getting this really nice stretch for both the hamstrings, but also these muscles on the inner thigh, the adductors. You want to look over, make sure that your foot is at least parallel to the floor. And you may even be able to dial the toes down toward the floor a little bit more. So you're getting a little more of that rotation. You can feel that. And the one thing to look for here is that both shoulders are still on the mat. You don't want to end up tipping over. So the leg is heavy, right? There's a lot of muscle and bone there. And there's going to be a point where you're going to want to tip over. It happens to all of us. So stop just shy of that point. That's where that other hand can really come in as a counterbalance to this. And so I'm still pushing into the strap with the ball of my foot. I'm still keeping that extended leg straight. My right leg is still nice and straight. And you may notice a big difference side to side doing this pose. So for me, for example, my left side opens up a lot more easily. It's got more range than my right side does. And I don't know why. It's just the way my hips work. Maybe it's because I've been using the gas pedal with this foot for, 40 years or whatever. postural habits. All right, and then to come out, what you do is just use an inhale, lift the leg up, and then you can slide the strap off. And then, again, like we did in episode 1, take your time when you're lowering the leg down. That's just another way to engage with the hip flexor muscles. It's a way to get the core, the deep belly muscles working a little bit as you lower that foot down to the mat. So that's hand to big toe 2. Utthita Hasta Pada Gustasana 2, if you want the Sanskrit for that, but I guess that was me just showing off a little Sanskrit, if that's impressive at all, which, it's just memorization. It's just memorization. So that's the one pose in this episode that's on our back, and I wanted to throw that in there. The next couple poses that we're going to look at are some of the poses that we're going to see oftentimes, again, toward the beginning of a class as we're starting to warm up. And what we're going to be doing is some knee down stuff, some lunges, some work like that. So these are particularly good poses to practice here and kind of understand the alignment of, because later in the series, in the next episode, we're going to take some of these poses and bring them up off the mat so that instead of a knee down version, we're going to be standing and there's a little more balance involved. So that'll be the next episode. But getting a sense of it here, I think, will be valuable for you. So the first one we're going to take a look at is going to be just a knee down low lunge. And if you're an athlete, you've probably done this a lot, like a runner's lunge. A lot of people will call this. This is not going to be super unfamiliar to you, and you'll see how it fits into the yoga. So I'm going to show you both what the pose is and usually how we're going to move into that pose. So let me start with that. Let's just come to a down dog. So y'all know the down dog. We've played with that in the first couple episodes. So from a down dog, you're going to look forward, and then you're going to pull the right knee into the chest. So let's do it on the right side. Pull the knee into the chest, and then step the foot to the right thumb. Once it gets there, go ahead and drop that back knee down and untuck the toes. And this is where it can be really handy to use the blocks. So what we want to do as we're setting up is make sure that we've got our knee over our ankle. So that's one of the really big pieces of alignment here. We don't want this, the knee shooting out too far past there. We don't want it back here so that we're not getting enough lunge. We want to see if we can get it right on top of the ankle. And the blocks are there just to steady yourself. You can just use them the whole time you're in this pose if you like. Alternately, you could bring your hands up onto your thigh bone if you want to. That's another good place for them. So that's the front leg. We've got the heel under the knee. We're pushing the heel up into the knee. And then let's talk about what the back leg is doing here. So the knee is down. My shin is parallel to the side of the mat. So it's not kickstanding in or swinging out. I don't even know if I could swing out. But we've also got the big toe of the back foot reaching straight back so that the ankle itself isn't spilling or tilting in one way or the other. And we do that for a couple reasons. Number one, we want to use that back foot for some extra pressure. So if you kick that back foot down into the mat, you're going to feel that deeper stretch across the hip flexors, that left hip crease, which is the area that we're really getting into with this pose. The other reason is with the ankle in general, there's a lot of tendons there, and they're the most strained and sprained tendons in the body. So when we can, we want to try and just protect them from overstretching too much in either direction. I don't think there'd be much danger of that, but it's just a good habit to be in. And so as you're in this knee down low lunge, what you want to do is let the pelvis swing down and forward. So you'll find as you let that happen, this stretch gets stronger, gets deeper, and you can keep the body upright here. You don't want to necessarily be down here for this pose. It's better to keep the body, the torso a little bit upright, really press things down. So that's the knee down low lunge. That's really, it's a pretty straightforward pose. And like I said, if you're an athlete, you probably know this one. You've probably done this a bunch. So great for the hip flexors. And then from here, the next one I'm going to show you is like a half split. So from this knee down lunge, push the hips back, straighten into that front leg. And so I'm going to just scoot the blocks back a little bit so that they're in front of me or under the shoulders. So if you need a little bit more stretch here, you could, hop that foot forward just a little bit. But what I've done is I've brought my left hip over my left knee, and I've straightened the front leg, and my heel's in line with my hip on this right side. And then what I want to do to intensify this, couple things. Think about pressing the heel down into the mat. Think about pushing that big toe mound forward. And then think about hinging up and over a little bit, right? Again, we're not into trying to, bring the head down to the knee or anything like that. But if you can keep the back straight and kind of hinge up and out, you're going to feel those hamstrings really start to engage a little bit more. So another thing you can think about here is with that front foot, if you rotate it out a little, so external rotation, you'll feel different hamstrings activate a little bit. Come back through center and go the other way. A little internal rotation, and you'll feel different parts of the hamstrings on the back of the leg start to activate. So a nice flow that you can do, and we'll do this at the end of this episode, is you can move back and forth between these two shapes, right? Look, knee down low lunge, half split. And you can flow with the breath, the same way we did with our cats and our cows. So on this one, you could exhale, straighten the leg, inhale, bring it forward, and just move with the breath. And this is great, right? In terms of getting your legs open, if you come back from a run or a ride or a hike or a ruck and you want to just stretch everything, this is going to get you most of what you're going to want, right? So you're getting your hamstrings, you're getting your hip flexors, you're getting a nice hip stretch. When you're down in that low lunge, this is the deep flexion in the hip. So pretty valuable combo there. Now what I want to show you guys is we're going to take a look at a lizard pose, really a baby lizard. So the knee down version of this pose. So what we do is we come forward, knee down, low lunge, and then we bring our hands to the inside of that front foot and then heel toe that right foot off to the right. So I've got it really, I don't know if you can see it from there that well, but it's right at the edge of the mat, and both of my hands are inside that front foot. And I'm actually pressing the right leg against the outside of the arm. I'll go this way just so you can see it a little better. But see how my arm and leg are connected? I'm pressing them together. So that's activating a little bit of those adductors again, right? Makes this nice connection. And this is something that really fundamental. And as we start to get into eventually more intermediate and advanced poses in our practice, having that sense of connection between the arm and the leg like that can be really important for us. But this is where we want to practice it. So the back leg is just like it was in that low lunge. Big toe pointing straight back. I'm getting this nice hip flexor stretch on the left side again. Really deep flexion of this right hip. So really getting into that hip. So this is one variation of that. My arms are straight, and I'm trying not to, like hang my head in the posture of defeat. I'm trying to lift it up, pull my heart forward. So finding maybe a little hint of that baby cobra that we looked at, that low cobra. And then one variant on this too, if you like, and I'll show you a couple, just so you have it as reference, right? Since I'm here, one thing you can do is let this front leg hinge out to the side. So I'm rolling up onto the pinky toe side edge of that foot. And again, I'll show you in this direction here. So pressing the arm and the leg against one another is one version. The other is you let the hip open up. The only thing you really want to be careful of here is keep your second and third toe in line with the shin, so you're not doing anything to twist the knee or the ankle as you're doing that. And then I'll show you one more flavor of this that, again, particularly if you're a cyclist, check this one out. You're going to love this. Or hate it, depending on how your body's put together. But so what I do is come into this baby lizard, let the knee drop out, and then I'm going to take my right hand up to the knee, adding a little bit of a twist in here. So I'm just getting a little gentle twist. But then what you want to do, if you want a great quad stretch, check it. Bend the back leg, reach back, grab that foot. And this is a really intense stretch for the quads, the hips, hip flexors. And with this hand on the back foot, you want to grab the pinky toe side edge of the foot so you're keeping external rotation in your shoulder, so you're not tweaking your shoulder. And then you can kick that foot into the hand to open the shoulder, or you can pull that heel in toward your glutes. And that is just a killer, killer, killer quad stretch. So another way to look at it there. And again, so that baby lizard, you've got the basic shape, and then those just different variants of it, right? You can let the knee hinge out to the side. You can add that little bit of a twist to it. You can reach back, grab the back leg, and get that awesome mega quad stretch. So let's come to tabletop. We're going to look at the next and last version of these sort of knee down poses that we're looking at in this episode. So let's come to tabletop. And what we're going to look at here is called a modified side plank. So from our tabletop, and again, shoulders right over the wrists, the index fingers are pointing straight ahead. Fingers are spread wide. I've got the hips over the knees. The tops of the feet are pressing into the mat. I'm going to kickstand my right foot so that it comes off the mat. So it's at about a 45-degree angle from where it had been. And then I'm going to roll up, and I'm going to line up the arch of my left foot roughly with where this right knee is. That's where that kickstand helps balance us. If you want a little more challenge, like if you want to engage your core muscles a bit more, and those will be the balancing muscles, you could shorten up that angle. Like you could even really, if you want to, leave that knee or that shin right where it was when you were in your tabletop. Makes it a little more challenging if you're going to do any balance stuff. So you could split the difference or do that 45. And then from here, go ahead, lift the left arm up to the ceiling. And so the couple things you're thinking about in this modified side plank are pushing the mat away with the right hand, reaching as high as you can with the left hand. And if you've got any tweaky shoulder stuff, you can always just drop the hand to the hip or take a half bind. You bring the palm to face behind you, let the knuckle side of your hand just rest on your low back somewhere. And then get long from the pinky toe side edge of the foot up through the crown of the head. So that's flavor one. Flavor two to this modified side plank is we float that left leg up. So this is a great pose because we're getting into the outside of the hip. So you know how we were stretching those adductors on the inside of the upper part of the leg? Now we're getting into the abductors. So they're keeping that leg lifted. And again, with the lifted leg, I'm pushing through the heel. I've got the foot flexed, the toes are pointing at the short edge of the mat. Again, the arm can be lifted. I'm trying to debate. Okay, I'll show you. There's a third variant of this too, which again is like a quad stretch, like we did. So you can reach back, grab the big toe side edge of that foot, and then you're getting a nice quad stretch here too in this modified side plank. So again, a couple different flavors that we've got, and you'll see as we start to develop our practice more fully, there's always little variants, versions and modifications that you can do to most of the poses. So in time, you're gonna really get this vocabulary where you're gonna understand what modifications work for you, right? There might be some days you wanna dial things back. There may be some days you wanna push things forward. So in that modified side plank that we were just in, maybe if you wanna just be super chill, you take a nice big angle with that back leg so you're not struggling with balance. You keep the foot down, you keep the shoulder down, or you keep the arm down, right? That would be kind of a relaxed version of this. If you want a more intense version, maybe you keep that bottom leg more straight. Maybe you float up the back leg. Maybe you lift the arm, right? So it really depends on where you're at. And that's the way I recommend making your practice all the time. Because there's going to be days where something's nagging you or something feels extra tight. Or maybe you're just in a recovery day and you want to just take things, down a little bit. And it's not like more and less or better and worse. That's something that I really want to, emphasize for everybody. It's what you need on a particular day. And there are days, if you're an athlete, your rest and recovery days are really just as important as the days that you're going to push. And it should be the same way in your yoga practice. So you should look at those days when you are in more of that recovery mode as just as valid, right? It's all about giving your body what it needs on the day when you need it. So those are some of the poses that we see that make that transition between being on our back, being on the mat, and getting up and standing. There's one more pose I want to show you before we turn this into a flow. So in the last episode, when we did our sun salutation, we worked with our utkatasana, our mountain pose. Everybody knows this one. It's called standing. But what I want to show you guys now is chair pose. And this is something that is really good for strengthening the quad muscles, really good for opening up the shoulders, and really it's a powerful pose. And I would say that of all the poses that we've looked at up until now in the series, this is probably the most intense of the poses. So with our chair pose, what we want to do, and it's relatively straightforward, find that mountain pose where we're just standing. And then you may want to bring your feet together, big toes touching. Although if it's easier for you balance-wise, you can leave the feet hip width apart. And then what you want to do is sink your hips down like you're sitting in a chair, right? That's why it's called chair pose. So the hips are nice and low. And then what we do is we reach the arms up by the shoulders. So we're getting a little bit of a heart opening here. And we're getting this nice quad work. So we're strengthening the hip flexors here. So one thing to look for is take a peek at your knees. You don't want them coming way out in front of your toes, right? You want it so that they're maybe ideally right over the arches of your feet. So you can keep the hips nice and low. Try not to come into a big back bend either. So we don't want to be like, wah! We just want to be nice and low, nice and strong. And here's a modification, a variant of it, which I like a lot. Bring your elbows to your knees. And so you're almost like a downhill skier here. The back is nice and flat. There's a little bit of that low cobra in here. So I'm pulling the shoulders back, broadening across the collarbones. And then from a chair pose, you can just forward fold down. Let the head hang heavy. If you want to come up through a chair pose, drop the hips, lift the arms, and then straighten the legs. Bring your hands to heart center. So you can see that is a powerful pose. You can maybe hear it in my voice. A little harder to talk my way through that one than with the other poses. And why is that? Well, these are some of the biggest, strongest muscles that we have. We're really engaging them, really isolating them. So this is a good way to help condition those muscles which we love as athletes. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take these poses that we looked at in this episode. I'm going to turn them into a short flow. And that flow is going to use some of the poses that we looked at in the previous two episodes. We're not going to do a sun salute in this episode, but we may do one later, in a later episode. For now, let's start this one on our back, okay? Have that strap handy nearby. And then we'll all meet in just a Shavasana shape. So just let everything relax here. And then tune in to the breath. See if you can lengthen out your inhale and lengthen out the exhale. See if you can relax the muscles around your eyes. Let the arms and the legs get nice and heavy. And then from here, we're going to come into our reclined mountain pose. So activate the legs, and we start with the feet. Flex the feet, the toes are pointing up to the ceiling. Press those big toe mounds forward. Peel the pinky toe side edge of the foot back. Press the thigh bones down. Point the tailbone toward the heels. Kneecaps are pulling up to the hips. We'll leave that left leg in place. Pull that right knee into your chest. Give it a nice squeeze. Don't lose the engagement of that left leg. And then take a few movements with the thigh bone and the hip socket, circling one direction, circling the other direction. And then we're going to take the strap around the ball of the right foot, and we're going to lift that foot up to the ceiling. This is that hand to big toe pose. The strap is right around the ball of the foot. I've heard that referred to as the brain of the foot. I'm not sure if it's an actual brain, but it is one of those areas where it really gives you a good sense of what the foot is doing. So I think that's probably where that moniker comes from. Lifted leg is nice and straight. Try not to strain in the arms or the face. And then we're going to take both straps into the right hand. And take your left hand, reach it out to the side, maybe palm is up, maybe palm is down. Really depends on what's going to feel comfortable for you. And then you can start to release that leg out to the side, keeping both shoulder blades on the mat. Maybe resting your right elbow on the floor, keeping the left leg in place. Feeling that stretch on the inner thigh. You can try dialing the toes down toward the floor. See how that feels. Keep breathing. And on your next inhale, the leg comes up through the center. You can slide that strap off. And then with control, nice and slow, go ahead and lower that right leg down to meet the left. When it comes down, go ahead, let both feet drop out to the side. Notice the difference. This is where you might be able to feel the effects of both of those poses we just did on the right side. See how that hip feels. It's such an important thing to see how these poses feel in your body, because it's not just about, the alignment, right? That helps get in to what we're after with a pose, but it's how the pose makes you feel. That's really the benefit of our practice in many ways. So let's come back to our reclined mountain pose. We'll activate the feet again. This time, leave the right leg where it is. Pull that left knee into the chest. Any of the movement that you took on the right side, go ahead and take on this side. Another opportunity to see how different the sides might just naturally be for you. And if they are, even if they're very different, don't sweat it. That's just kind of the way we're built. We're not perfectly symmetrical. Go ahead, take the strap around the ball of the left foot, and we'll lift that foot up to the ceiling. Foot is nice and flexed, leg is nice and straight. If the leg needs to be down farther in order for you to get the leg straight, that's fine. Keep the lifted leg working, keep the grounded leg working as well. Try not to let this hip, the left hip, hike up. So make sure that you're almost kind of pointing it towards the right foot. Keep pulling those quad muscles to the bone. And then we're taking both ends of the strap into the left hand. You can weigh down your body, maybe bring your right hand to your right hip. as you slowly let that leg extend out to the side. Looking for that point where you're going to tip and staying just shy of it. Notice where you feel the sensation most intensely here. Keep pushing through the heel of the left foot. We'll take another round of breath. And then we'll go ahead, inhale the left leg up. You can ditch the strap. And then slowly we're lowering the left leg down to meet the right. Comes all the way down. We let both feet drape out to the side. Seeing if you brought a sense of balance or symmetry into the body after having done both those. And then let's pull both knees into the chest, curl up into a tiny little ball shape. We'll rock and roll along the length of the spine. And then we're going to come up and over, and we're going to make our way to our tabletop. So let's come back to tabletop. And as we do every time we come to tabletop, really spread the fingers nice and wide. My index fingers make the number 11 when I'm looking at them. My wrist creases are parallel to that short edge of the mat. Shoulders above wrists, hips above the knees. Tops of the feet are gently pressing into the mat. Then we're going to drop our belly, lift our gaze, lift our hips, coming into our cow pose. And then we're going to reverse, rounding into our cat pose. So let's take this a couple times. Just moving at your own pace here, moving at your own breath. Exhaling through your cow and inhaling through your cat. Allowing this movement to make its way up the spine, starting at the tailbone, and then going all the way up to the base of the skull. If you want to add in some other movement here, go ahead and do it. If you want to look out over one shoulder and then the other, or take some circles to get into the wrists. If you do that, just keep track. So you want to do about the same amount on every side. We do like to keep things balanced in our yoga practice. And then we're going to come back through center. From here, let's go ahead, tuck the toes, step back into this downward facing dog. And then for a moment, just bend both knees nice and deeply. Really push through your arms. Really spin those biceps out. Get long from the wrist crease to the sit bones. And then go ahead, straighten into the legs. We'll take a couple rounds of breath here in this down dog. Just feeling that sense of balance, right? Do you feel balance between your arms and your legs? If your arms are doing a little too much work, maybe step your feet in. And vice versa. Keep the arms straight, keep the biceps spinning out. Make sure you can't see your heels. They should be behind the front of your feet. And then from here, we're going to look forward. We're going to pull the right knee into the chest. We're going to step that right foot to the right thumb. Go ahead, drop the back knee, untuck the toes, grab those blocks, and we're finding our low lunge. So this is the knee down low lunge. We're just letting those hips swing down and forward. Double checking that we've got the knee above the ankle on the right leg. Making sure that our foot isn't sickling in or curling in. Out back, you're reaching that big toe straight back. You can feel that stretch across the left hip crease here. Allow gravity to help us, letting the pelvis pull down. Keep breathing here. Use those long exhalations to let the muscles release a little bit. We'll take an inhale. And on the exhale, push the hips back, straightening into that front leg. And then we're going to move with the breath. Inhale forward into the low lunge. Exhale into that half split. Moving at your own pace. You can always slow down the movement. That's a nice way to really track what's happening. It's also interesting sometimes to see what muscles are initiating these movements. Next time that you push the hips back, let's go ahead and pause there. So here you may want to walk the blocks back so they're a little more underneath your shoulders, maybe even hop that front foot out just a little bit. Getting into the hamstrings here, pressing that heel down into the mat, pushing the big toe mound of that right foot forward. You can lift the heart, hinge up and out, and then just, at the hips is where we hinge, deepening that hamstring stretch. And then we're going to rock forward again. Let's move the blocks out of the way. Let's frame our foot with our hands. So maybe the fingers are lining up with the pinky toe here. Tuck the back toes under, lift that left knee, and then we're going to just step back to our down dog. So finding that down dog, noticing what feels maybe a little more open after having done those poses. We've got a little on both sides. Hopefully your right hamstrings and your left hip flexors are feeling a bit more open. And then we're going to look forward, pull the left knee into the chest, step that foot to the left thumb, drop the right knee, untuck the toes. We're back up with the blocks. And then at first we're just easing into the low lunge. So double checking that my shin is parallel to the edge of the mat, my toes are pointing back, my ankle's not spilling out. I've got my knee over my ankle on the left side, and then I'm just letting the hips come down and forward. Keeping the torso upright. You can keep your hands on your blocks if you like. You could bring your hands to that left thigh bone, knee, thigh bone. Keeping the torso upright, feeling that stretch, this time across the right hip flexors. Think about pressing the top of that right foot down into the mat. That's going to intensify the stretch that you're feeling. And then if you did lift your hands onto your leg, bring it back to the blocks, and then we're straightening into the front leg. We're going to start flowing between those two shapes, just like we did on the other side. So inhale forward, exhale to straighten in that front leg. So we're extending that front leg, and then we're bending that front leg. So this is really nice movement for the hips. It's really nice movement for the hip flexors and the hamstrings. So again, this is a really nice choice if you're cooling down from a long workout, particularly, running and cycling. I mean, maybe I favor those sports because they're the ones I do the most often, but I'm sure there are plenty of sports where this is going to feel really nice afterward. And then the next time that left leg is extended, we'll just pause here, shift the blocks so that it's a bit more stable. Really concentrate on getting into those hamstrings. Imagine you're looking out and over the edge of the front of your mat. Again, so that's just that idea, pulling forward so that we're not, leaning down or curling down. One more round of breath, so nice inhale. And then on the exhale, let's rebend. Let's move those blocks out of the way, frame up that front foot, tuck the back toes. We're lifting the right knee and we're stepping back to our downward facing dog. Taking a nice long stretch in this down dog. And so one thing I'm going to show you guys here, just inhale, lift that right leg up. So this is just a variation of down dog. It's called three-legged dog for the obvious reasons. And then go ahead, rock forward, pull that knee into the chest. We're stepping the right foot forward again. We're going to heel toe that right foot off to the right and then drop the left knee. And here, you can have your hands on the mat on the inside of that right foot. You can also lift yourself up onto blocks here too. So on the medium height, on the flattest height, on the tallest height, right? Whatever's going to feel good in terms of getting into the right hip and getting into those left hip flexors. You can also have your hands right on the mat as well. So we'll start by pressing the arm and the leg into each other, feeling that connection. Pull the heart forward. Try not to collapse here. And then you could stay right here, or we're going to let that right knee swing out, rolling up onto the pinky toe side edge of the foot. Remember, second and third toe are staying in line with the shin. And you can stay here, or you can bring the right hand up to that right knee. We're setting up for a little bit of a twist here. And then the last part, if you want it, would be to bend the back leg, reach back until you can grab the pinky toe side edge of that foot. I mean, I suppose you could grab the ankle or whatever you can grab. And then let the hips swing down and forward again, getting this nice quad stretch on the left quads. We're getting a nice hip opening on the right hip at the same time. This is a pretty comprehensive pose. It's doing a lot. We're even getting some shoulder opening. If you did grab the foot, let it go without having it sort of just catapult slam down to the mat. We're going to walk the foot back in. We're going to tuck the back toes. We're going to step back to our down dog, and we're going to take that to the other side. So let's come to the three-legged dog on the left side. So inhale, lift that left leg up. So here we're getting a long line from the wrist creases up to the lifted heel. And then we rock forward, knee pulls into the chest. We're stepping the foot forward, heel toeing it off to the right, or sorry, the left, and then dropping the right knee, finding our lizard pose here on this side. So just settling into this pose, keeping the arm and the leg connected to one another. And again, perfectly fine if you want to grab your blocks. Sometimes I prefer using the blocks. I feel I can get a little bit more focus on what my hips are doing. It's a slightly different angle, a little more support. And then you can stay right here, or as we did before, you can let this left knee swing out to the side. See how I'm on the pinky toe side edge of the foot? You can stay here with your hands on the blocks or on the mat, just like this. This is a great way. We're working the hips in a couple different directions here. And then if you want to add the twist, you could take that left hand up to the left knee. So we're rolling the torso toward the bent leg. And then the last bit, if you really like, is to go ahead, bend that back leg. You can find it. Pull the foot in toward your glute. Keep breathing here. And then again, if you do have the foot, let it go carefully. We're going to reframe the front foot, heel toe that left foot back in. Tuck the back toes, lift the knee. We're stepping back to our down dog. We'll take a long stretch here in this down dog. And then let's drop our knees. We're going to find our tabletop. And then from here, we're going to set up for that modified side plank. So what I'd like you to do is just kickstand that right foot off to the right. And be generous. I mean, if you really want to play with your balance, you can keep it where it is. But for right now, let's get that support so we can really just start to feel what this pose is like. So we're setting up for that modified side plank. The inner arch of my left foot is roughly lined up with my knee of my right knee, pushing my hips forward, straightening into the leg, sealing off the pinky toe side edge of that left foot, and then lifting the left arm up to the ceiling. Again, if you want to drop the left hand to the hip or behind your back, you can do that. Try and keep that left leg engaged. Keep thinking about pushing the hips to the long edge of the mat that you're facing. You can stay right here, or if you like, you can start floating that left leg up, engaging those outer hip muscles to lift the leg. And you can stay right here, or you can bend the lifted leg. Grab the big toe side of that foot if you can. Get that quad stretch. And then you can let it go carefully. We'll lower the foot. We'll unwind. We'll come back to our tabletop. Let's take a round of cow and cat before we go anywhere. Let's drop the belly, lift the heart, and then reverse it, coming through our cat. And we'll set up for that on the other side. So go ahead, kickstand that left foot off to the left. We're lining the right inner arch up with the left knee, and then we're reaching up. I'm facing away with you guys, from you guys, so you can see what it looks like from the back. So again, the arm options here, you can keep reaching that right arm up, or you can dial the thumb back so the palm is facing the wall behind me, and then just drop that hand to the low back like this. You could also just plant it on your hip if you like. You could bring it back there. And then if you want to go ahead and float that right leg up, pushing through the lifted heel, my toes are pointing to the long edge of the mat that I'm facing. And you can stay there, or you can go ahead, bend into the leg, grab the big toe side of the foot. So I'm opening the shoulder a bit. Kick the foot into the hand. Feel that quad engagement. And feel your core working here too. Just keeping balanced here. All those little adjustments you're making, keeping your center of gravity over the support. Then re-extend the foot if you grabbed it. We'll lower it down. We'll come back to tabletop. And then let's make our way to a child's pose. So bring the sides of the big toes together, separate the knees a bit, and then just sink the torso down between the legs. Here you might even want to bring the hands down by the hips, get out of the wrists from those modified side planks. Let that heat settle a bit. And so even though we haven't really stood up from the mat for this flow, but it builds up some heat, right? So there's a lot you can do without even getting to the standing poses. So forehead is resting on the mat. We're going to set up for our down dog. So go ahead, if you moved your arms, reach them out in front of you. Elbows are lifted off the mat. Fingers are spread wide. Hands are shoulders width apart. You can always peek up and check if you're not sure if it feels or looks like shoulder width. And then lift the hips, tuck the toes. We're sending the hips up and back, finding our downward facing dog. And then we're going to look forward and just walk our feet to the front of the mat. Let's inhale into that halfway lift. So remember, we want more weight in the front of the feet than in the heels. And we want the back to be nice and straight, as if I could come by and just put, a yardstick on your back or a golf club on your back, and it would stay there, be nice and straight. Find a little bit of that low cobra, so you're rolling the shoulders back as you pull the heart forward. And then go ahead, fold all the way over to our forward fold. So the Sanskrit here is utkatasana. And then we're going to hinge at the hip. See if we can come up with a straight back. Reach the arms overhead, and then hands come to heart center. So from here, we're going to come into that chair pose. So what I want you to do is inhale as you lift the arms, sink the hips at the same time, finding that chair pose. So again, the knees aren't out in front of the toes. They're about over the arches of your feet. We're not in a big back bend. And then from here, go ahead, bring your hands to heart center. And let's take that modified version. So bring your elbows to your knees, sink the butt a little bit more. Find that downhill skiing feeling, pulling the heart forward. Nice. And then you can fold all the way over. Back into that forward fold. Let's come back up through chair. So when you're ready, sink the hips, lift the arms, and then straighten the legs. Hands come to heart center. So from here, let's come through chair one more time. Inhale the arms up, sink the hips down. Exhale, fold all the way over. Inhale brings us to a halfway lift. Exhale, keep that lift, plant your hands. We're going to step back to our plank. And then we're going to lift the hips up and back to our downward facing dog. Take a last stretch in this down dog. And then go ahead, drop your knees, cross over your shins. Let's sit back. And then from here, let's take a seated forward fold. We looked at some of these in episode 2. So bring the soles of your feet together. Let the knees drop out to the side. You can grab your feet. Inhale to lengthen your spine. Sit up nice and tall. And then exhale, hinge forward. And then you can start to let the spine relax a little bit here. You can let the head hang. Another option I like is to make a little stack of blocks to rest the forehead on, whatever height works for you. You can play Stonehenge, whatever suits your purposes. And here you can let the inner thighs just stretch passively. If you want a little more, you could always use your elbows to press down on the shins a bit. We'll take another round of breath here. And then we're going to sit up. You can bring your hands to the outside of your legs, close them up, and we're just coming down onto our back. So what I would like to do now is plant your feet. You know, the legs are bent, the feet are hips width apart. And then we're just going to go ahead, maybe separate the feet a tiny bit more and let the knees just both drop over to the left. So this is a really gentle form of a twist. What I like about this is that the left hip is in that external rotation. You know, you think of the thigh bone and the hip socket, but the top leg is actually getting into almost an internal rotation. So because we worked the hips with both that modified side plank and with that baby lizard pose, this is a nice way to just release them both a bit before we finish. Go ahead, inhale the legs up through center and let them drop down to the right this time. So now that top leg is in a little bit of internal rotation and the left leg, or the right leg rather, is in that external rotation. And I like to think of the anatomy in a fairly general way in my yoga practice, right? I like to think of the relationship of the bones, what big muscle groups are being activated. You know, if you've ever done a cursory study of anatomy when it comes to your activities and your sports, it's actually pretty cool. I mean, I love that knowledge of what, you know, when I'm feeling something strengthen or stretch, what am I feeling? And having the ability to identify those is pretty cool. And there's tons of stuff you can find on YouTube that gets into that kind of anatomy. Go ahead, bring the knees back up through center. Let's pull both knees back into the chest. Curl up into that tight little ball. And then we're going to come down for our Shavasana. So you can extend the legs out in front of you. We're back in Shavasana like we started. Feet are relaxed. Legs are relaxed. Hips are heavy on the mat. Shoulders are heavy on the mat. The back of the head heavy on the mat. Back of the hands are on the mat. Take a quick body scan, see how things are feeling, and then take a deep inhale. And as you let it go on the exhale, release all the tension in your body. Give yourself a few minutes here just to rest after this short flow. And you can let the video run out, or you can take as much time in that Shavasana as you like. But what I hope is that coming through this flow, after doing those poses, breaking them down a little bit, starts to bring home the feeling of the poses for you, right? So I think one of the things that's challenging about starting something like yoga is there's just an avalanche of information. It's like, what are the poses called? What is the alignment of each pose? Where are the limbs supposed to be? How am I supposed to be breathing? How do I get from one pose to the other pose, right? That's a lot. It'll all come to you, right? It's just repetition. The more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be. The big thing I want to emphasize throughout this whole series is the fact that the most important thing is that you know what a particular pose feels like when you're in it. When you're in that modified side plank that we looked at in this episode, you know what that feels like in your body. You know the outer hip is working. You know that the shoulders are getting a little bit of a workout. Your core is doing a little bit of balancing, and seeing how that feels, and then seeing and feeling the effects of the pose on your body. So you do the pose and then you come out. What does it feel like? When you come back to down dog, what does it feel like? When you come back down on your back, what does it feel like? Because this isn't for nothing, right? These poses have lasted for a long time because they really do target specific parts of the body in a way that's really beneficial for us. And you can feel it. Like if you've been in that half split, your hamstrings are more open, and that's what we want. That's why it's such a good complement to our other activities and the other sports that we do. So we're using muscles in certain ways, but we want to make sure that we're also going the opposite way. So if you're always building a muscle, you also want to stretch a muscle. If there's certain muscles we're ignoring, we want to make sure that we're getting into them and giving them some attention too, so we don't get weirdly out of balance. And so as we move through, this series, it's not as though this is the comprehensive collection of every bit of information about every pose. No. This is really about just me sharing with you, the basics of each pose so that you yourself can start to feel what it's like and see the benefits of the pose and the flows for yourself, as well as being comfortable, like I said at the very beginning. I want you to, if you stick with this series, I want you to be comfortable jumping into any yoga flow on my site, any yoga flow that's on the internet. If you want to go to check out a local studio, which I do recommend because I think practicing this with other people can be really inspiring. It can be a nice way to connect with people. It can be a nice way to hold yourself accountable because, when you're in a room full of people that might be looking at what you're doing, not that they really are, which is, maybe we'll get into that at some point. People aren't really looking at you. But the fact that you think they might be makes you try and do everything a little cleaner, a little more effort. Anyways, end of rant. So that was episode 3. We looked at a bunch of stuff that's kind of on the mat, that's starting to build that transition that's going to get us up into the standing poses. Episode 4, we're going to start to break down those standing poses. So I hope this worked out for you. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, I say this all the time, but it just helps get this information out to other people. If you did like this video, go ahead and just hit the like button. Hit the subscribe, hit the bell. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. Again, I'll see you in the next episode for the standing poses. I hope this was fun. I look forward to flowing with you again.